Welcome to the Horror Movie Showdown, episode 100. It is pretty insane to think that this show has been running for more than 7 years, where we have been exploring the darkest corners of cinema together. Over the years, the show has definitely had its ups and downs in terms of popularity. I never expected that my review of the horrible movie Zombie Ass would become the most watched episode with more than 30,000 views, while episodes about excellent movies like From Dusk Till Dawn and American Psycho just have a few hundred views. But it's not all about the views. Today's episode is a cause for celebration, and I have quite the episode in store for you today. Because in this episode, I will be revealing my top 10 favorite horror movies of all time. Some of the movies I have already covered in the showdown, but a few are also missing. In this video, all the missing movies will of course be getting the full horror movie showdown treatment. So I hope you have plenty of time, because this is going to be a long episode. Let's start with the 10th best horror movie of all time, which will likely also be my most controversial pick on the list. It is Touristas. I originally gave the movie an overall score of just 7, but somehow I keep coming back to this one, as it has such a great energy and the cinematography is just beautiful. After several rewatches, I will have to adjust its overall score to an 8. Number 9 is the first new entry on the list, and it is Halloween. So for those of you who are just here for the top 10, you can skip to the next movie, while for the rest of you, it's time to take a closer look at the most influential slasher movie of all time. The movie starts with John Carpenter's haunting soundtrack lingering in the background as we follow the point of view of some creepy stalker spying on a young couple. The stalker soon roams the house purposefully preparing himself for a cold-blooded murder, and after putting on a mask, he's ready to slice and dice. With one slash after the other, he takes down his first victim, a topless girl who was just doing her hair. Shortly after, it is shockingly revealed that the killer is just a little kid. The opening is just so iconic, and it has since been mimicked in countless slasher movies, including Funhouse and Scream, and I don't think you would get away with having a kid as a killer in a modern movie. We jump 15 years forward, where the psychiatrist Dr. Loomis is about to check in on the now institutionalized Michael, who hasn't said a single word for all those years. According to the doctor, he is pure evil, and unfortunately it seems that he has just escaped. With evil on the loose, Haddonfield is in for a night of terror, the night of Halloween. In Haddonfield, we follow Laurie Strode and her friends as they are preparing to celebrate Halloween. Unknown to them, they are also the targets of Michael Myers. The movie has the usual babysitter plot of watching scary movies, making sexcapades while the kids are sleeping, and people getting cut into pieces. Surprisingly, the movie only has 4 on-screen kills, but they are all pretty dark, gruesome, and fun, like the strangulation that sounds like sex moans. Talking of sex, the movie gets a nudity score of 6 for its multiple topless scenes, and scenes like this one. The movie is pretty grounded with a scary and creepy sound universe, and the soundtrack just makes you feel like you are constantly being watched. It gets a scariness score of 7, which is pretty good for a slasher movie. Despite being released back in 1978, I think the movie remains haunting to this date, and its creepy voyeuristic scenes and synthetic soundtrack brings its overall score up to an 8. Speaking of 8s, at the 8th place we have another newcomer to the showdown, and that is the zombie flick Dawn of the Dead. When the movie came out back in 2004, it delivered a fresh take on the zombie apocalypse. And to my taste, the movie hasn't been surpassed until the year 2023, when The Last of Us was released. But as The Last of Us is a series, Dawn of the Dead keeps its spot as the best zombie movie of all time. It only takes the movie 5 minutes before the audience is thrown into a world of chaos when the neighbor's cute little girl finds a sudden urge for human flesh. Anna is sent running for her life, barely escaping her husband through the bathroom window, and she goes straight for the car, instantly unlocking it. It is always refreshing when movies feature characters who neither stumble or drop the keys. Outside, Anna finds her neighborhood gone to hell. Everything feels quite real, and you also feel a real sense of urgency as Anna makes her escape to a nearby mall with a group of other survivors. I do think that a closed mall would be the perfect hideout during an actual zombie apocalypse, as it has food, shelter, generators, and everything else you can dream of for surviving and having fun for years. There's been several intellectual interpretations of Dawn of the Dead over the years, talking about the mall being symbolic of capitalism, hedonism, and much more. But I don't care much about all that. I find the most interesting part of the movie to be the theme of survival. So it turns out that the group are not the first to inhabit the mall, which leads us to power struggles and trust issues. But after securing the mall, everything settles down a bit, and now the movie becomes a bit more existentialistic. What would you do if you had unlimited time on your hands, but if you were restricted to a single location? Well, some of the characters decide to play chess, which is pretty trending these days. And some try on expensive lingerie, some work out, and some make videos for their personal collections. But all the hedonism apparently quickly gets old, so the group decides to build 2 armored vehicles to escape to the harbor, from where they hope to sail away to a paradise island. And don't we all? If we don't count all the bloody zombie kills, the movie has a total of 18 on-screen kills. The movie does some great scares, like when the little girl first attacks, when the group of survivors are attacked in the garage, and when they're attacked in the sewer system. And of course, we had that insanely creepy zombie baby. It's enough for a scariness score of 6. The movie has a few topless scenes, which is enough for a nudity score of 5. Overall, the movie has aged a bit, but the film's unapologetic approach to the zombie genre, its interesting characters, and the whole mall scenario is still enough for an overall score of 8. And then of course this scene gives the movie a few extra bonus points.
Satan is sending his dead to us. Why? Because you have sex out of wedlock.
On the 7th place, we find The Descent, which I reviewed all the way back in episode 19. To this date, it is still one of the scariest movies of all time, combining claustrophobia with fear of the dark. Number 6 is Army of Darkness, which is a masterclass in practical effects and hilariously stupid and inventive gags. Number 5 is Fright Night, a fun and scary movie about the teenager Charlie Brewster who discovers that his neighbor is a vampire. But unfortunately for Charlie, his neighbor also finds out that he knows. It is a fun 80s movie that has awesome practical effects, and it has the perfect 80s feeling, contributing to its cult status. At the 4th place, we have The Excellent from Dusk Till Dawn, which is one of my favorite movie experiences of all time, as going in blind you don't see the last half coming. And then of course Quentin Tarantino's sharp dialogue and Tom Savini's practical effects make it a bloody good time. Number 3 is American Psycho, which I reviewed in the last episode. There are only 2 other performances ever that come close to what Christian Bale delivered with Patrick Bateman, and that has to be Heath Ledger and Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker. At the 2nd place, we have the last newcomer to the list, and that is Ridley Scott's Alien from 1979. I have several friends who refuse watching movies from before the year 2010 because they are too old, slow and boring. So let's find out how this ancient movie from before the internet, smartphones and TikTok can be considered the 2nd best horror movie of all time. The movie doesn't start with a bunch of action, kills and insanity like most modern horror movies, but instead we get 2 minutes of a camera slowly panning across the vastness of space, while a tense and suspenseful soundtrack is lingering in the background. As a viewer, this slow scene makes you feel the uncomfortable emptiness of space and a fear of the unknown dangers lurking out there. We move on to the cold, empty and industrial insides of the Nostromo, a space vehicle on its way back to Earth with precious mineral ore. Despite being made back in 1979, the spaceship still looks and feels more real than any CGI I have watched in the last 10 years. The crew is woken up from their sleeping pods as the ship receives a transmission of an unknown origin. And at breakfast we're introduced to the 7 crew members who all believe they have been woken up because they have reached home, but instead they're in for a surprise. We have of course seen this kind of plot multiple times before, as in movies like Event Horizon, but I still think this movie has done it the best. Next we head off to explore where the signal is coming from. It turns out to be coming from a planetoid, which is basically a very small planet on which a spaceship is able to land, so a shuttle is sent there to explore. It is quite incredible to see how all these hand-built miniatures still look and feel real. There are probably only a handful of modern movies since that have rivaled the special effects in Alien, like Interstellar and Blade Runner 2049. Anyways, while the shuttle attempts landing on the planetoid, everything feels super fragile and the outer environment feels really hostile. In modern movies, space travel just feels trivial, like there's no real danger. On the planetoid, the exploration crew discovers this foreign object, which we, after 6 more Alien movies, of course know is the spaceship of the creators. But let's forget about all that for now, as most of the sequels are pretty stupid and your imagination is probably much better at guessing what it is than what the writers of the sequels came up with. The crew slowly makes their way through the foreign spaceship and the viewers are kept at the edge of their seats as we have no idea what is lurking around the corners. Soon we get a good look at some giant aliens with busted chests, foreshadowing things to come. Meanwhile, at the shuttle, we get introduced to Senior Officer Ripley, who is intelligent and cautious, while the Senior Science Officer seems to be more interested in the discovery than in safety. As the investigation team gets deeper into the spaceship, they discover something, and it is not friendly. They hurry back to the shuttle with the unconscious Kane having the face hugger attached to his face. Ripley is the voice of reason and won't let them in as she fears that they are contaminated and would compromise the entire shuttle.
Listen to me. If we break quarantine, we could all die.
Look, could you open the goddamn hatch? We have to get him inside.
But the science officer doesn't care and just lets them in. I will not bore you with a scene-by-scene breakdown of the rest of the movie, but essentially soon a xenomorph is released inside the ship and it sneaks around taking down the crew members one by one as if it was a slasher movie. The xenomorph succeeds in taking down a total of 6 victims in genuinely scary scenes. As a kid I had nightmares for years about the facehuggers infesting me with aliens that would burst out of my chest. It is truly terrifying. It gets a scariness score of 10. The movie is light on nudity, and Ripley's underwear is only enough for a nudity score of 3. There can be no doubt that Alien is a timeless classic that is genuinely scary and exciting. The movie gets an overall score of 10. Finally, we have number 1, another sci-fi horror movie, which of course is The Thing, one of my favorite movies of all time. The movie takes us to a remote and isolated location where bad CGI has been banned. Here we follow a research group as they encounter an organism that can imitate biological creatures. First, the scientists look at the organism with curiosity and then with fear. The imitating organism makes for a tense whodunit kind of plot, where you attempt to guess who is real and who is an imitation. The movie only becomes better due to its absolutely insane, impressive and unexpected practical effects. No movie has ever done practical effects better than The Thing. They're so good. Since its release in 1982, people have attempted to replicate the impact of The Thing with movies like Infinity, The Thing 2 and Life, but they have all just turned out to be bad imitations. Speaking of bad imitations, no one has yet attempted to imitate the horror movie Showdown, which may be a good reason to let the 100th episode be the last episode of the show. It has been a joy sharing my passion for horror movies with you guys and having tons of fun discussions in the comments over the years. I hope you enjoyed this last episode, and thank you for watching. I will catch you later.